Time for another check-in with the State Representative Techie Chan of Quincy for a Techie Talk. How are you doing, Techie?
Doing good, Joe. Happy Wednesday, I believe. It's been a week, and it's a cloudy day today.
Well, what a surprise! Clouds and rain. It's we're having a Seattle summer so far.
Oh, it actually is. Last year it was drought conditions all year,
That's
and
right.
we're filling the reservoirs. Although the Cape and the islands still could use a little more rain, I understand. But it's people's well water should be better this year as well as the Quab and other reservoir areas this year. So you won't need to get as much water alerts, which is funny because everyone was home last year despite there was a water shortage.
That's right. Yeah, I think we're gonna have a bumper crop of mosquitoes this year for sure.
I've had a few nips, so to speak, of mosquitoes. I've been stung a few times already, um, obviously there's been a big pollen season. There's acorns everywhere around my house. I mean, this is a crop year for tree pollen and nuts where I live anyway. And chipmunks and squirrels are having a field day.
Oh yeah. So I'm waiting for the harvest, tomatoes and squash. I think there's gonna be quite a few of them this year.
Well, squirrels are adept at getting into tomatoes. I learned that as a child from my father.
Yeah, they'll stop at nothing. That's for sure.
Actually,
How is how's your world and the world? Actually, since last we talked, it's been announced that the State House, I guess, won't fully reopen even by October.
Yeah, last week we did our joint rules debate. I'm sorry, House rules debate. Joint rules is still in conference committee, and the House is going to keep temporary rules open to October 1st. Senate President and Speaker has both announced they have already formed a joint committee to discuss the building's reopening and how we're going to do it. As I remind folks again, I live in a box. Imagine being inside your closet with no windows. That is the State House. It just has very high ceilings. So obviously the concern continues to be the fact that we are not checking people's vaccinations coming into the building. We do require currently contact tracing. Anybody comes to the State House, we have to keep a log and be able to find you in case something does happen. And the question is, how we're going to perhaps keep a log, not keep a log. Do we not check people's health situations? What do we do with staff health situations? And then those who visit my office knows that staff are sitting about 2 feet apart. There really is no more space to move desks, as well as my own office, which does have windows. Mind you, it's actually below ground level windows. I mean, it's kind of a retaining wall situation. I stare at a wall, it's a good sized office, but again, the air doesn't move. We have one. We use a hot, cold water heating system, whatever that fluid is in the pipes, and just a fan that blows off the pipes. So we don't actually have an HAV. We're circulating air.
Yeah.
This is the whole State House. And if you're a freshman rep, you're going to get a cube. Basically, it's basically like a 7x7 box of plywood with surrounding you with a light overhead with your aides sitting 2 feet behind you.
Okay. All right. So it's too close quarters for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even though people getting vaccinated, we still know that 30% or so of the population that's eligible for vaccine are not vaccinated. In Quincy, we're sitting around 62, 64% vaccination. We're not quite at 70% in Quincy. There is no vaccine approved for children, but my gut tells me we're going to see something after Labor Day. Children can be carriers, even though they do have a very low, but not none. They do have a low, but not none mortality rate and severe illness rate. But they can also be carriers. So with the Delta variant running rapid right now through the entire world, this thing has moved super fast and it's coming out of India. If you're not vaccinated, your odds have now just gone dramatically that you could be infected by COVID-19.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions in our world regarding how do we deal with an inherently sick building. I've been working there a very long time. And those folks who've seen me in the district, particularly again during the months of November to April, if I'm not on vacation in December or someplace warm, I'm always sick. I've noticed when I go away for a while, the stress levels go down, and actually lower stress actually helps your health. There is no going away. There's obviously no going away last year. Probably not going away this year where things are looking. It's not just I always joke that it's part of being out in the district meeting people. I pick up someone's cold or the flu, but the State House is just also one giant incubator. In
Mhm.
my 20 plus years of working in the building, I mean, as I've aged, my immune system ain't so great. Um, I do age, just saying.
Even though you don't look it, Jackie. No, but obviously it is a concern. Now we're hearing about even these breakthrough cases of vaccinated people out on the Cape. I know that's been a few cases, and I'm sure there are others too.
Yeah, there's a couple of key points about this. Right now, the research shows, and again, in another week, I could be wrong because I only know what I know today. This has been the challenge of COVID-19. Every time I learn something in 7 days, it may be different. But the key parts of the U.S. vaccines, the Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson Johnson, but especially Pfizer, Moderna, so far, if you're infected COVID-19, you're not transmissible, and that's the key. The vaccines keep you from reaching a viral load. When you exhale, more virus comes out. The goal is to try to contain and kill the virus inside your body, to give your body a chance to kill it, because the vaccine identifies it, teaches your body how to get it and go kill it before it multiplies enough to leave your body, and that's how you get these mutations. So the more people infected increases the odds of these variant COVID-19 cases. Right now, the key number zero deaths of using any of the U.S. made vaccines.
Hmm.
Has now been tested on close to 100 million people, right?
Right. Yeah.
At least in the U.S., 100 million plus people. So the getting infected and ill has been very small. To my knowledge, has been only a handful of hospitalizations. It has been severe enough that you have to be hospitalized. I think in J&J's case, I think there's still zero hospitalizations related to COVID-19. I do understand there's been other side effects,
Hmm.
but again, you're weighing against hundreds of millions of doses given out.
Right.
The small number of people with side effects. So it's basically going to be it's actually less dangerous than Tylenol. I think at this stage, I think there's other drugs that you probably have a higher percentage of possible adverse effects. But then again, I mean, I could be wrong next week because again, the science is constantly coming out.
Right.
But I mean, there was talking and watching the news again, and the Sinovac vaccine out of China does not use mRNA technology. It uses the old flu vaccine technology, and there has been hundreds and hundreds to some countries thousands of COVID infections despite being fully vaccinated. And there's been confirmed at least one death, potentially two or more, as they continue the autopsies and data collection of people who died from taking the Chinese vaccines.
Mm.
So right now, I mean, the UK vaccine of AstraZeneca right now, as well as Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson Johnson, have zero deaths.
Hmm.
That's been linked to it. And people are like, well, you missed some. Well, yeah, there's always a case. The medical facilities and scientists from across the globe have missed a case or two, but the reality is that the monitoring level of COVID-19 infections is something every country takes extremely seriously.
Yeah. Do you think that here in Massachusetts we're in a better position just because of the higher vaccination rate in general?
No, absolutely. I mean, the more vaccinated people reduces the possibility of spread. And like I said, the U.S. vaccines have shown thus far that if you are infected, the cases are very mild, and then you're also not infectious. You're not giving anybody else. And the key is to stop it somewhere.
Right.
And if a virus has no place to live and no place to multiply, then it's over. It just doesn't know where to go. So again, I encourage everyone to get vaccinated. If not been vaccinated, we're at over 70% of people who are eligible for vaccine, which is everyone over age 12, is vaccinated, fully vaccinated, but we still need to get the number higher. And this is a key part of our economy. You need people to work. You need customers that are healthy to keep the world going around us. And those of you who want to travel, at least inside the U.S., minimum, you're vaccinated, your odds are still good that you won't get sick. And thus far, the mRNA vaccines seem to be very effective still against the variants, especially the new Delta variant. So the change technology. Canada is hoping to open up their borders sometime this fall, because my sister-in-law is actually from Canada, hasn't seen her parents in a couple of years, just very much like everybody else that's watching, have not seen family in a while. They're eager to get back up there, but again, they're fully vaccinated here, but then they're not hit critical mass herd immunity potential in Canada. Um, so, I mean, the COVID numbers are better, but again, the Delta variant, has caused spikes in 47 states in the U.S. already. The southern states that are not have high vaccination rates are now taking overrun hospitals.
Hmm. Yeah, we're seeing that Arkansas, Mississippi, some other places. I think Nevada's having issues as well. So I guess that's proof that the vaccines, are effective.
Well, the Massachusetts numbers show that once we head closer and closer to 60, 70% vaccination rates, the number of COVID cases dramatically dropped. And it was a cliff. It just came straight down, and
Hmm.
hospitalizations came down as well as deaths. Now it's spiking up again. I think everyone's been watching numbers. It's going in the other direction. And I'm going to tell you, it's probably largely contributed to Delta variant. And I still believe what's going to happen is that you're going to have treat this like the measles in the long term. We have a cluster of unvaccinated folks. Hence the issue of opening the state house, living in a box.
Yeah.
You got these unvaccinated folks in a cluster, and the virus is going to go crazy in that one zone. And it's going to have to be local public health officials to try to get containment and contact tracing as quickly as possible. Because if you're in a community like in Quincy, we have 40%, 40, 45, 30, 40% still unvaccinated. But if you happen to be, all in one neighborhood unvaccinated, for example, and one person gets a Delta variant, you could find itself bouncing around in that one neighborhood very quickly.
Right, right.
So, this is kind of the, constant conversation about vaccination
Hmm.
is that, there's that inherent danger inside a small area of unvaccinated folks.
Yeah. We talk a little bit about a report that the governor cited this week, Jackie, about the return to work in Massachusetts, and some of the challenges and changes that he's anticipating and hoping to fund with money from the American Rescue Plan.
Well, you mean the life we've been living for the last year and a half that we all know
Basically,
already?
it's like we're a living experiment right now. Yeah, exactly.
I think pretty much everybody watching this kind of like you needed a report to tell us something we all kind of been living, like a book report in some ways.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
this is my summer. This is my summer, right? We've talked about this quite a few times, and I think there's a general agreement that a certain segment of especially the white collar working world, is going to be operating some hybrid model for the most part. I know I've heard from some families this works well for them and it doesn't work well for others, right?
Yeah.
It's a very much a case by case basis, and it has a really big impact on transportation and the economy of dense population areas, especially the city of Boston, which increases by 1 million people during working hours for a city of almost 700,000. So its infrastructure is designed to take in other million folks. So you had asked me last time what the deal with the MBTA is, and I honestly haven't looked at numbers, but I did a drive-by by Walls Station midday last week. I had to do some errands and a couple of appointments outside of my home. It's actually kind of fun taking appointments outside my home. But people aren't willing to go to Boston, so I'm now meeting people locally.
Okay.
In a coffee shop, place of business, whatever works, right? And Boston parking lot was not even barely half full.
Wow. That speaks volumes because normally you can't get near that place.
Yeah, those who take Walton T Station knows that lot is full before 7:30 in the morning.
Yep.
And this was midweek. But we are seeing higher traffic patterns because the roadways have increased traffic coming out of Boston. I still believe that part of that is driven by the fact that people are afraid to get on public transit.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I don't think it's the inconvenience of the mask. I think it's just concern about what's going on in the tube. Even though the air is blowing, you're still in a small tube with people around you. So I think there's a legitimate concern. So the governor, talks about things we all know about. I mean, the adverse effects is described in public transportation, the impact of traffic generally, the workplace environment changes. And, I've always been advocating the fact that employers should compensate employees for using their own stuff at home. You're using your own water, your own electricity, your own equipment in many cases. And, employees should compensate people for that. You are expected to work at a workplace, not expected to work at home, and the impact on your pocketbook associated with that. And again, I filed a bill to allow you to take those home expenses, the deduction of your taxes, because under the Trump tax cut law, he took away people with W-2's ability to take tax deductions for business.
Hmm.
So for those of you who thought that the Trump tax was great, well, I mean, they stuck it to working class folks in W-2s.
Yeah, and charitable deductions too. So
Yeah,
that impacted nonprofits. Yeah.
absolutely. Particularly, in the time when, some of us have a couple bucks, want to be helpful.
Yep.
You can't get a deduction for that as well.
Right.
So, um, there's all these other factors involved. And then, I don't think they accounted for the infrastructure costs. As I said before, using water and electricity. Well, your residential areas aren't designed for all your homes to be running 24/7 nonstop. Your infrastructure is designed largely for residential use, meaning that most people would not be home during the day hours, but
Right.
they have reduced usage and it has more high usage at night. So your electrical system, your power systems at the national grid, NSTARS, have a ability to track how much power is being used. ISO England tracks the power in the region and where it's being consumed. And obviously, Boston's not consuming the same amount of electricity, water, sewage than you are at home in your communities. Quincy's an overbuilt city. I mean, no one's going to deny that.
Mhm.
But we have an infrastructure that's like over 100 years old, designed for a city that was much smaller. And everything from rainwater collection down to sewer water and electricity reflects that. And we talked about this before. We've experienced this more than once doing a Zoom call with you, where the internet went down
Mhm.
of bandwidth issues during remote learning. So I do believe that obviously school's back in play at this fall. Kids will be home, not home as often to use bandwidth, but there still would be a lot of infrastructure impact if a third or more of the workforce doesn't go back into the office in Boston, or even if half the workforce or more operates in a hybrid model.
Yeah. One thing I took away I thought was very interesting was the increased need for workforce training. For a lot of folks who have lost their jobs and those jobs are gone; they're not coming back. So what do we do with these folks? We need to find them new jobs.
Well, our running joke is how to use the damn mute button.
Hmm.
We have a mute people. Use the mute button is kind of the running joke all the time, but it's also not a running joke. I've been muted and unmuted incorrectly myself
Right.
over the course of time, and this is a legitimate. I know it sounds odd, but it's a legitimate workforce training question, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. Certain jobs will probably have permanent workforce reduction regarding COVID, and some businesses never open up again. I mean,
Right.
Grumpy Whites is gone, for example.
Yep.
There's one restaurant locally that just couldn't get through COVID. Various hands-on businesses such as salons and massage parlors are not fully hiring because, again, I mean, changing workforce.
Yeah.
And if you go to KMN Marketplace, they have some of those storefronts in the middle of the market in that little kind of U-shaped thing. There's some business, last visit there, permanently closed, including Lollipop. Bubble tea is
Mhm.
gone for.
Yeah, and
I
even
think
bigger retailers are like Target and Walmart are having trouble, getting people to come.
But yeah, it was not just getting people to come, but I mean, some were going out of business. I mean, Lord and Taylor had a fire sale, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, so part of it is, people saying that you have the higher unemployment benefits. I agree with that. Part of it is people realize they're dead at jobs. I agree with that. I think part of it is people reaching a certain age where they decide that, this is what are you really doing with your life? And some will
Mhm.
just flat out retire. I agree with that too.
Mhm.
I think it's very unfair to just blame the unemployment benefits as the cause of workforce shortage. If you're in a continuous exposure to people every single day with no knowledge about whether or not they can make you ill with a disease that is now closing in on mumps level of infectious rate, slowly but steady getting to mumps with the Delta virus. You got to rethink about how important is your life, and then you got to think, we're in the middle of a job that, frankly, we all know has nowhere else to go. And wouldn't you like to think about what your next steps in life is? I think COVID has given a lot of people that wake up call. And I know people that retire younger than they expected because they don't want to, they don't know how long you're going to be around. The mortality thing is quite real.
No, I think all that is true. I agree. It's a combination of all of that, and more too that we're not even aware of yet. I think.
Yeah, and the workforce training is, I made fun of the mute button, but I mean, it's really a technology change issue,
Mhm.
how we use that technology. And, and I mean, we're going to have more delivery services. I don't consider that a workforce training issue. It's a workforce shortage,
Mm.
right? Delivering stuff. Let's be honest. What's your career path, right? Where does that take you? And I mean, one of the things that employers have now had to deal with, they haven't dealt with since pre-08 recession, or really the pre-03 recession, is a buyer's market for employees.
Hmm.
It's been a very long time since employers had to deal with employee leverage regarding salaries and benefits. And people get comfortable in a certain way of doing business, even though it's not always been the case. We know for a fact that employees have leveraged before in salary. It's not new, but it's been so long. Employers act like it's something brand new,
Right.
because they've gotten so used to the way things operate. And that's a huge workforce adjustment also for employers as well, about what does it take to make an investment in an employee, or you're looking just for rotational employees that frankly, and have all discovered that why am I doing this? There's nowhere to go.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we continue to have challenges in hiring in healthcare. I mean, I think as COVID, has a huge psychological and physical impact on healthcare workers. I think there's going to be a need for more workforce training on that stuff. I mean, obviously, everyone keeps talking about high tech, obviously, but biotech also needs more technicians as they continue to ramp up, their research, not just in COVID-19, but
Mhm.
so many other diseases. And
Yeah, the mRNA technology has just a vast, future, I think, in many different diseases.
yeah, there's work in biotech. If people are looking to get a technician's degree, a 2-year associate at Quincy College or other, institution. I know Framingham State's another one that has
Mhm.
biotech a technician degree. I mean, I think it's a good time for people to look at, the future of our economy here and doing that. And certain things in hospitality may never return. I've talked about travel agencies before, but travel agencies are not massively rehiring their people.
No.
There's nowhere to go. And there's a segment of workforce that needs to rethink about this. I mean, ticket resellers. I mean, the ticket reseller in Quincy's gone, right? So there's another group of folks that need to really rethink where they're going to go. I mean, they expect them to go to a low wage job or low hourly job, or they're going to rethink where their career is going. So
Mm.
I think while the economy is recovering, people have this like misconception that everything's going back to normal. I hate to tell everyone this, but there is no new normal, no normal go back to. It's a new normal we're still trying to work out. And the governor's report is, well, we all live the governor's report, but I mean, it's kind of just trying to reflect the fact that don't expect things to go back to pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Like,
Another takeaway was I think you mentioned something like the need for 200,000 new housing units by the year 2030 or something, and that astounded me really. 'Cause, who's coming and what are they going to do?
well, I mean, we've been feeling the housing crunch for a long time. We've been talking about affordable housing for what it feels like a lifetime to me.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not a new conversation. What you got a housing shortage right now outside of Boston because people are fleeing dense urban
Mhm.
in favor of a yard. I mean, those of us in Quincy that are in single family homes, have the benefit of social distancing by having a yard.
Right.
And at least enjoy some outdoor space, even though we really can't go anywhere and get some air and sun, versus living in a multi-unit area where one person gets COVID, the whole place potentially could also be infected, which has happened. In actually, New York is the example, sadly, during wave one. I mean, the multi-story buildings were just one giant infection zone. Sad, but that's what happened. So the housing shortage is not a new issue. It's just funny they brought it up. It's really about the question of what affordable housing is going to look like. And
Mm.
residential housing prices, because of high demand and low supply, has gone through the roof.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when you guys look at your taxes coming up, unfortunately, on your property taxes, you're going to see a massive assessment of how high your value of your property is because of homes sold around you of similar design. It should reflected in your property tax valuation. That's going to impact your taxes. As the valuation goes up, so does your taxes. So the real question is, what do you do if people who aren't selling the Boston properties who can afford to buy a home outside of Boston. And, how do you still make it affordable where so-called smart growth has created more expensive housing closer to public transit? And I'm aware the governor has been looking at building more affordable housing near public transit. But I mean, not to criticize a project, but you got a North Quincy project now that isn't designed for working affordable housing, first job folks near a train station. You don't want them to own a car. And that's kind of I blame this one on Deval Patrick. I mean, all he did was create something that was considered undesirable, more desirable to be near public transportation. People didn't like near public transit because of the noise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And anybody who lives close to train tracks, I dealt with noise train issues for a while. Is people tend to want to not do that, but now it's the opposite. Your property value goes up despite that. So, 200,000 units of housing. I think we all know that's not new. I think moving forward, again, it's a new normal, right? People working more white-collar jobs. People don't want to raise their family in a dense urban area,
Mm-hmm.
in a multi-story building. What's going to happen there? We're past Tokyo, I think, in terms of cost of living. I think we're on par, if not exceeded, San Francisco in housing prices relative to per capita. That's ridiculous. So I'm not thinking new people moving in. I think it's more people moving around.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah.
Get out of your parents' house, I think is the way to put it.
What's that?
Get out of your parents' house.
Okay. All right. So young urban professionals, it's the yuppies are coming back.
Yeah. Well, as people know, I'm still in my mom's house. So I'm kind of the living example of that one. But I mean, I think everyone knows family members and friends whose kids are coming home from school and they're trying to figure out, can they live on their own?
Oh yes, it's in my own family, absolutely, for nieces and nephews, and I'm sure many other people too. Are struggling with that same issue for sure. Any more discussion about the 2-month sales tax holiday, Taki?
That news died fast.
Yeah.
After the little blurb, there's been no conversation in my world about it, other than hearing from a handful of constituents about their opposition and support for the matter. It's become irrelevant very quickly in terms of conversation. We passed the budget last week with new projections significantly higher than our original projections,
Mm-hmm.
which actually allowed us not to use rainy day money. It allowed us not to use one-time transfers. Allow us to actually balance the budget without actually eating any reserves.
That's nice. That's good.
Yeah, so that's good. I mean, it's a nice problem to have. Much to my shock, as most people have heard me over the course of last summer, I was preparing for a apocalyptic level of budget problems.
Right. Yeah.
And now we have the opposite, largely driven by capital gains. So, the goal is to get to a $5+ billion rainy day fund, which would be about 10% of our budget, or about more than 15 or 16% of our tax collection, more accurately, because it's just, the budget has about 1/3 federal reimbursements.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not all state tax and fees and penalties that are funding the budget. So there's a huge federal component. And we still have that large amount of money for the COVID-19 state assistance that we have to have a plan in place to spend over the course of 3 years or 2 years, depending which program that the feds tell us we have to put money into.
Yep.
So, the sales tax holiday is going to be for 2 days in August. I believe the 13th or 14th, I think. Is that Friday or Saturday? Is like the second or third one?
I think it's the 14th and 15th. 14th. Yeah.
So it's that weekend. Saturday and Sunday weekend.
Right.
It's weekend now for some reason, but no, Saturday and Sunday. So that's coming up. But I mean, I've not heard a massive outcry that we need a whole 2 months, 61 days worth.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard that either. And you're right. It just kind of it got great headlines and then fizzled. So it looks like it's a DOA.
Yeah, that'd be a fair assessment, given the fact we're already in mid-July. I wish it was August. We're already mid-July now. Amazingly quick how July is now moving. It's just nothing there.
Right, right. What is coming up in your committee, folks should know about?
Well, we're going to have a public hearing this coming Monday. You can watch it on Facebook Live on the State Representative Taki Chan page. You can watch my past ones as well if you really want to see me more. I don't know how to put it. We're going to talk a little bit about car industry on Monday. So we have some car franchise bills. We have some bills regarding used cars and consumer protection on those fronts. So we do have a few bills out there to address those issues and get mostly key testimony from consumer advocates as well as people in the car selling industries. We are not going to address the right to repair. That's sitting in court. I know the voters passed in the law in November. It's in the First Circuit Federal Court, so it's in the U.S. District Court right now. There is non-enforcement by the AG's office as the court case unfolds. And the committee will be sitting on those bills, not hearing them yet until we see what the decision of the First Circuit is. We may see a decision sometime after Labor Day. I don't know. The court's going to issue. And the legislature generally responds to what the courts do. So the courts have a specific set of guidelines because they violate constitutionality. We have to work our way around those guidelines to ensure we don't violate the Constitution. If the court rules against the right to repair folks under a federal component, there's not likely I can find a way around it, but then again, I have to read the case. If the right to repair folks win, the law goes through as is, but the court has the ability to change stipulations based on constitutionality.
Okay.
So it may be a partial change, and the legislature has to fill in the gap if that's the case. So those who don't know, this car right to repair that the voters approved gives you and anybody you tell them to access to the telemetric data in your car. It doesn't limit access, meaning that while it's going after repair data, it doesn't prohibit the ability for anyone else to go to anywhere else in the car. It says you can look at it, but it doesn't say you can't look at everything else. So, everything for your radio stations to GPS coordinates could be given away as well as your telephone list that it's imported in your car. For example, it doesn't say it has to be a car mechanic.
Okay.
You could measure data to anybody. So, or it doesn't also prohibit them from collecting and keeping it.
Okay.
So,
and selling it, right?
And selling it, your repair shop could keep a copy of GPS data and sell it to a marketing company. Or there's also no prohibition of them tampering or inserting new data. So if somebody wants to, like Dunkin' Donuts, we just pick any company and say Dunkin' Donuts wants to input into a display every Dunkin' Donuts whether you like not an ad show up. You don't have any say in the matter, guys. Just letting you know. That's what you voted for.
Not me. My car's 13 years old, so good luck getting anything out of that.
Actually, even your car is 13 years old, there's a good chance it still has that Wi-Fi set up. You actually probably have a low-grade 3G in your car transmitting data still.
Okay.
Yeah, and you also have a telemetric system. So, I had a car that was 13 years old. It was digital. So it actually had a telemetric system. So you actually hooked it up to a computer to see what's going on. So it actually is data in your car. You just don't hook up your phone. So that means you don't have contact imports and GPS.
Right, yeah.
There's other types of data in there as well, including probably your driving habits and how your car starts and stops and what time of day you turn it on.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, these things collect a lot of information that, believe it or not, is used to actually make your car safer because you get your recall notices much sooner because the cars transmit, oh my God, something's going on, you need to fix this part. And then manufacturers very rapidly respond to find a problem, correct a problem, and send a recall notice on anything from a cap malfunction to something more serious like the airbags that we've seen other recall on.
Interesting.
They're trying to get ahead of anybody getting killed from a manufacturing error. And that's what the telemetric data does. So the car industry is very intrusive. I'm not going to lie to you people. They're very intrusive in your car. On the flip side, you hear very little number of actual car manufacturing accidents. They try to get ahead of any potential malfunctions. And of course, they pay for those costs associated with those recalls. So yeah, we'll see what the court does. And we'll take it from there. But I've been looking at this issue for well into a decade. It's much more complicated than people realize what's going on here. Because I would not personally, would not like anybody to access the rest of the information in my car, give them the keys to open the rest of the information in my car. Right now it's just a read device only for the repair data.
Yeah. That's, I want them to know if there's something mechanically wrong with the car, certainly.
Yeah, the current diagnostic systems only look at the code spit out by the car,
Yeah.
saying that, hey, I got a problem. Here's my code number. Look up the number in the
Mhm.
book for the database system, but it can't send messages back the other way.
Yeah, and I mean, independent repair shops already had that capability, right, before this law.
Yeah, state law requires that any equipment, training, and data access given to a car dealership must also be provided for a third-party manufacturer to ask and willing to pay for the same information.
Yeah.
The current law also allows the technology to be upgraded, so you move to a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth-based data transmission for repair codes. The independent repair shop has also a right to have the same equipment to read it as well. So they move away from wires, for example, which is going to happen.
Yeah.
And let's go to a Bluetooth-based information transmission, and you, as a repair shop, have the right compatible Bluetooth device, and can indicate that this is where you can send information to when you turn it on. That the current law allows to ensure that technology is available to you.
Yeah, the shop would have to pay to invest in that equipment, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. The pay and training will be required will be needed. I mean, they're not getting it for free.
Right. Okay.
And as car technology changes, this training is going to be much more crucial going forward. Anybody who knows a repair shop, fully understands as cars continue to be electrified, be electric cars, there's less parts that any of us recognize anyone under the hood.
Boy, that's true. Yeah.
There's going to be continuously training required. And we do require in the law that manufacturers have to give this training. It's equal opportunity training.
Yep. All righty, lots going on. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I mean, they got public hearings scheduled for every Monday to August 2nd. We're going to pick up public hearings starting August 30th. So there's about a 3-week break in the middle. And it gives us a chance to breathe a little bit for a few weeks in August to reevaluate the committee research and start moving more bills out in executive committee for the speaker and Ways and Means and the leadership team to look at as we're trying to get things to the floor. And stay tuned. I mean, there's going to be another supplemental budget of some form to address the FY21 surplus, which we have to spend in FY21 bills. Which include hopefully, I think we will refill the rainy day fund from money that paid for the FY21 budget. We don't close our books until October. So
Yeah.
there's a lot going on there. The governor should be setting back his vetoes and amendments sometime next Monday or Tuesday, depending on exactly what time the budget made to his desk last Friday. There'll be activity in the second half of the month on overrides and addressing governor's amendments. The film tax credit made it. As many guys know, I've been working on this for a decade now. And, thank you to the speaker and, all my colleagues that, gave us 160-0 vote on the version of the House. The only thing it changes, other than making it permanent, it requires production companies to spend 75% of their money in Massachusetts. And I've talked to some folks in the industry that's not a problem.
They probably spend more than that already anyway. Yeah.
That's actually correct. Right now, the law requires 50% or greater, but they actually do spend well over 50% in Massachusetts. Yeah. And this is also great news for small independent filmmakers because credit applies to any filmmaker that's doing a film that's over $50,000 budget.
Okay.
So this is a great opportunity as part of our economic recovery. It's great. It's in the budget. We'll see what the governor does. Anything
in the supplemental budget for your district?
We don't have a supplemental budget per se in terms of like extra money. Right now, the supplemental budget that we passed was bill paying and transfer money between accounts.
Oh, okay.
So there wasn't any kind of like earmarking opportunity or project specific Quincy. It was more of a bookkeeping. So not all our so-called supplemental budgets. I still refer to them old fashionedly as deficiency budgets because it's just paying and moving money around because that's what it really is. It's not extra money.
Gotcha.
Just
all right.
Plus supplies. So the last one we did really was a bunch of transfers. One of the quirky parts of that supplemental includes the mail-in ballot issue, which the
Oh.
House and Senate still has not reached a consensus on whether making it permanent or an extension through this year. And I do know there's a lot of concerns from cities and town clerks right now about getting that into place, especially with Boston. My
Mhm.
colleague, Rep. Santiago, has dropped out of the Boston mayor's race, so we're down to 5. But I mean, the September date is rapidly coming up on all the preliminaries. And
Yep.
I know in the city, I think there's still time left for people to take papers out and
Yes.
return them. So we don't even know if there's going to be a preliminary in Quincy yet. No, that's not true. No, is Ward 2 papers all in? I don't know.
They have until July 27th to take papers out, so we don't know.
So yeah, so I mean, obviously the clerks are very concerned because I think there may be a preliminary in Ward 2. I think.
Yes, there's 3 candidates declared right now.
So the clerks are obviously very eager for us because they got to get moving on getting that material in print. And the question, who pays for us or them? And last year's elections was state, federal elections. So the state picked up, that cost, but if we do a mail-in at home, mail-in ballots at home again, then, should the city pick up those costs?
Right.
But I mean, it seems like the clerks are very interested in wanting to continue mail-in ballots.
Oh yeah, it seems to be, especially here in Quincy, very popular. And they devised a system where they worked with the post office to get the ballots for Quincy out of the general circulation. That way, they could process them much more quickly.
And the city has COVID money, so
Mhm.
$46 million in COVID money plus a potential $16 million in county COVID money.
Right.
That's going to be Quincy. So I'm thinking, they could figure something out.
They can afford it, yeah.
At least this year they can figure something out.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about the whole redistricting issue. That's for next week, Tacky.
We can talk about that next week.
Yeah.
Not quite sure what the technical correction was in the Senate made to the House bill. I'm still not entirely clear what happened there.
Okay.
It's a little bit too technical. I got to sort that out.
All right. In the meantime, reach out to you, of course.
Yep, 617-722-2014, 617-722-2014. Hit a button, leave a voice for any staffer. You obviously have tacky.chan@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov. I am getting a lot of testimony these days, so it does take me quite a bit of time to sort through my email now because I'm averaging about 400 at this point plus a day as I'm kind of like sorting through these things. As well as obviously the Facebook page I announced earlier regarding watching me on site, but I also put some useful information up there. You can see my comings and goings as State Representative Tacky Chan. And we also have a Twitter account, at Tacky Chan, which we put some information at tackychan.org, which is the website that we use in the office for posting human service numbers, city numbers, phone numbers you can call folks before you call me. So obviously you can also just do a search engine, not even my site. Find out what you need, but obviously please be patient with us. We can do a work remote, but as you can tell, I do receive a ridiculous volume of emails a day, which just seems like what people want to do. But hopefully we will have a transition plan I can talk about soon, and eager to see people visit us again.
Sounds good. Meantime, we will check in next week.
I'll see you next week.